Hello, readers! Welcome back to Reading in the Middle. I'm your host, Annisha Jeffries. Today, I sit down with author Ellen Phinney, whose new book, A Dog and His Boy, The Switch, invites readers into a wild, sweet, and surprising world. In this story, an 11-year-old boy named Jax and his golden retriever Scout accidentally swap places. And they must learn how to live in each other's worlds. Whoa! In our conversation, we'll unpack the emotional heart of the switch. And what does it mean to walk in someone else's paws or shoes? How do stories like this help readers understand identity, empathy, friendship? Ellen takes us behind the curtain into her creative process, the ups and downs, and what she hopes middle grade readers will carry home. So, without any further ado, let's begin. Hi, Ellen. Welcome to Reading in the Middle. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Annisha. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I'm so excited. Ellen, we're going to talk about your book coming out called A Dog and His Boy, The Switch. And The Switch is such a fun and clever premise. It's a boy and a dog. They swap bodies after a wild collision. What first sparked the idea for this story?
So my own dog, Scout, was actually the inspiration when I was writing this book. I had a golden retriever and he had puppy energy his entire life. So I wanted to kind of give him a voice and make this really fun. So it's kind of based off of his personality a little bit, in my experience, having a really strong bond with him. The idea for the book, however, actually came from with the idea of with them swapping places. My husband and my nephew, they would play this game of like intergalactic space travel. And I had this idea, like, what if instead of kind of time travel, but as I was roaming around with the idea of a portal, I just thought, oh my goodness, what if it was this species change and it became this trading places story. And as soon as I had that thought, it just all kind of clicked. And then I could use Scout as my inspiration. And that was actually my dog's name. So I used his name in the book and I just felt that I wanted to do that. So
it's a lovely tribute. What were some of Scout's most memorable traits you felt captured in your writing?
Adventurous, smart, loyal. He was very goofy. I think as pet owners, it's easy to kind of put a human voice to them. Like, I always found myself asking, if Scout was a human, what would he be? He would be a chef or he would be a comedian. These were two ideas that we often had because he was just such a foodie and he was also very silly. So it's kind of funny to try to give that a little bit of dialogue and voice, but he was just a really amazing soul. And sometimes we end up getting just really special dogs. And to me, he was kind of like a superstar. So it was really fun to just have him be able to do all these different activities in the book.
Yeah, Scout's voice it feels authentic, right? Food obsessed, silly, and loyal. What parts of your real Scout made their way into the character?
I definitely think, just the adventure part. Scout did a lot of activities with me, and he and Jax are off on a lot of adventures together, and they have to figure things out together. So there's learning, and there's that emotion where they are communicating. We're constantly communicating with our animals, right? And even without words, and that's part of the power of this book. So as they're communicating and having to figure things out, they're really having to use their collective minds to kind of get through some of these mishaps and figure out what they're going to do. And also with other characters in the book, right? Sasha's obviously a prominent character, helping them all the time kind of solve things once she becomes aware of what's going on. So yeah, it's just that spirit of adventure and smarts, and then also keeping really their true essence of their spirit. Like, I really just want to play. I really just want to have fun. I don't really have focus for that long. Let's just not worry about it and instead do this. It's all going to be okay. And just kind of carrying that thread throughout really keeps it light and fun and funny. But there's a lot of emotion in the book because their bond is so strong. It's very intense and heartwarming at the same time that it's humorous, because they truly are inseparable. And it's like no one is understanding that, and they're trying to get that across. They're just a pair made for each other, and that's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Jax is navigating loneliness, new friendships, and change. How much of this story reflects your own childhood experiences?
Yeah, I moved a lot as a child, so I can certainly relate to that, having to make new friends, having to step into new schools in the middle of the school year, at the beginning of the school year, just a lot of different scenarios there, and having to be adaptable and resilient through that constant change. So I think having that relationship between him and Scout helps him so much as he's finding his place and he's developing new friendships with humans in the new school. And just growing up and having to kind of, how do you interact with your family? How do you, handle that change? So definitely it parlays in.
Absolutely. There's humor, like you mentioned, throughout, but also some darker moments, like Scout's fear of being forced into hunting. How did you balance laugh out loud scenes with real emotional stakes?
Yeah, I obviously had to make the stakes high for Scout and Jax as they're trying to get out of, they're trying to switch back, and all of this is happening, creating the conflict. I really took that stake from Scout in real life. He was a golden retriever, and so they often they do enjoy hunting or retrieving. It's part of what they're bred for. But in my case, my Scout did not like loud sounds, and he would not have been able to accommodate that. So I kind of used that trigger for him and that fear, and I was able to develop that into the book and make it a part of a scene and a really huge conflict, because he knew he was scouting his family. That was his purpose. He was going to find the family he wanted to be with. He didn't want to be told which family he was going to be with, and he didn't want to be paired with Eric. He didn't want to be a hunting dog. And then you had Jax on the other side, who wanted to have friends, right? He wanted a best friend. He was missing his friend. And so that was Jack's purpose. So they were both very clear on what they were trying to find, and then they found it in each other. But that's how I drew the hunting piece in. That was really based off of Scout not liking fireworks, not liking loud noises. He would not have done well in that scenario as he scouted his family.
And also, Ellen, friendship also is central here. We mentioned Jax and Scout, and then Sasha. Why was it important to weave in those human connections alongside the magical premise?
Absolutely, because I think, in real life, we need our support system, right? We don't go through this world alone. You have to be able to tell someone, and they have to believe you of these things that are going on in your life. And obviously, with this being a more whimsical book, we know that the parents are not going to just be on board with believing that their son is now a dog. But their friend will absolutely believe that, because she knows them. She knows their souls, right? And she could tell, like, yes, this behavior is so odd. And so she becomes a really important character, and one of Jax's closest friends that's human anyway in this story, as she's whip smart and tries to figure out, how can I help you? And that sense that she believes them is really a big turning point in the book. And that's important for Scout and Jax to have that.
Yeah, you have to have a friend that believes you. It's crucial and it's key. because, if you don't have anyone to believe you, then you can't move forward. And that's the great, wonderful thing about your book. It's the humor is perfectly pitched for middle graders, from peeing in pants to stinky butt. How do you approach writing humor and that lands with kids, also while keeping the story heartfelt?
I just kind of put myself in the shoes of Scout when I was writing it, in all honesty. I mean, that is how he just really kept me in this playful state. And it was like, how would, a human and a dog really navigate this? I mean, how would he really go to the bathroom? And then what would this be like? I have a lot of nieces and nephews. So I'm aware of kind of that energy and age range. But really it was putting myself in Scout's shoes and trying to say, how would he think about this? That's what allowed me to pull the humor in. Yeah, I don't know if there was a trick beyond that. I didn't give it so much thought. I mean, it was inspiration that came out, right? Sometimes we don't think about how we're doing something because it's not an exact formula, but what I knew the feeling. I knew the direction I was going, and I knew the feeling that I wanted to come out. And I knew I wanted to have it be light and funny so that it was really engaging.
As it is, it really is totally engaging, and so many great scenes. And I want to mention that you've studied film at USC School of Cinematic Arts. How did your film background, how did that shape the way you build scenes and structure of a middle grade novel?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I am a very visual person. So as I'm writing this book, I see it in my mind, and I just try to take what I'm seeing in my mind and I try to get that on the paper as close as possible. I mean, I absolutely could see this book as a movie, as a TV series.
Yeah.
It's live and vivid in my head, in my mind, as I read it, as I was writing it. And
Yes.
so coming from that cinematic background, it's just always visual, 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 trying to get it across in writing, and obviously so that kids can really picture it. They can feel it. That's what I love about a book, is you can go deep with those emotions. I want the kids to feel something. I want them to feel that heartfelt connection and I want them to feel that they can relate. And also, the humor allows it to be a little more accessible.
Yes.
But I want them to be able to visualize those scenes as well and feel like they're in them.
No, I did. You had the fall. I really did. You had the fall festival and the skateboard collision. So cinematic. Did you imagine them almost like film sequences while you were writing them?
Yes, absolutely. It's like I have a movie playing in my head the whole time, and I try to say, how can I extract what I am seeing in my mind and get this on paper and do it justice? Because oftentimes we have a story running through our mind, but it's really hard to articulate, or it's really hard to articulate the fullness of it. Like we might get pieces. And so I hope I did it, justice.
Did. Absolutely, you really did. And also with Scout trying to act human at school is hilarious. It's also tender. Were those scenes inspired by real classroom observations?
No, unfortunately, dogs are not really allowed on school property, right? So, this is obviously a fictional book, and we have to just get on with the premise and go with it. Yeah, I wish more dogs were allowed on school property, but so that just had to be made up in my mind with, okay, if they had really traded places, based on the behavior of a dog, what would he be doing? And then based on the behavior of a kid, what would they be doing? And so I love when they go into the classroom and they switch places where Jax is sitting on the floor and it's like one sitting on the floor, one sitting on the chair, and then they have to switch places really fast. Like, oh my gosh, we're doing this wrong. Everything being wrong, and they're trying to figure out, because that's your way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a good metaphor too for just, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, right? I mean, what is it like? I had to ask myself that a lot as I was writing this made up story.
These swap stories often, because I love them, and they often highlight empathy. What do you hope young readers learn about understanding someone else's perspective, even if that someone is a dog?
Yeah, I think it definitely gives you a different perspective to take a breath, take a moment and try to see it from the other side. When you're able to step back and do that, it does allow empathy and compassion to come in. Sasha had to take a moment to do that, right? And say, okay, am I going to believe these guys, And then have that moment of, okay, let's pretend I believe you. Let me see if I can get on board with this. And then that empathy was able to come in. Same with, that is why Jax and Scout are constantly fighting for each other, right? Because they're able to see it from both sides. And so they really stand up to their parents throughout the entire book, because there is no other consequence available to them, right? It's like this. So they have that really strong, firm boundary, but it allows that empathy to come in, and you can hear that in the conversation that Scout is trying to have with Jax's parents towards the end of the book before they switch back. Really, he's trying to bring that empathy to the table. I think this story also shows empathy for our animals. If you take the Trading Places story out, this teaches a gentle way of being with animals. They're living, breathing, and how do we want to love them and treat them? And so I know I didn't set out to teach any moral stories when I wrote this book. This was just a fun, imaginative, engaging story that was inspired that I wanted to tell. Mm-hmm. But I do think that is another theme that was able to come out in the book.
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree. So much fun. It just really, it tugs at the heartstrings as well too, because the relationship between Scout and Jax is so, it's just beautiful. It really is. And if kids could walk away with just one lesson from the switch, what would you hope it would be?
Wow, that's a really good question. I hope that they walk away really feeling that strong bond, really being able to come out of the book feeling emotion of, feeling heartfelt emotion. They might not have an animal. They don't need to have an animal. But just to walk away and just know, like, they were meant to be. May everybody be so fortunate to experience something as inseparable and bonding as that.
Definitely agree with that. Now, Ellen, you've been touring with your book, visiting with different bookstores. Have you visited any schools?
I have visited. Yeah, I have. And now that we're getting into back to school, mm-hmm. I'm hoping for even more opportunity to come. So it's definitely, trying to build that momentum.
Yeah. So, so you share the book with young readers. What has been their funniest or most surprising reaction to the story? According to young readers, feedback I'm hearing, it's very suspenseful and page-turning. They're very engaged with it. I would say that's probably the most common thing. They're very engaged with it, but they're all kind of connecting to different things. Some of them are really loving the humor, like the potty humor. Some of them are really loving the relationship between Scout and Jax, and they're just really feeling that on a heart level. Mm-hmm. Some people are really loving more of the conflict side, like all of the challenges that Eric poses. So they're all kind of relating and having different snippets that
are their favorite, but I would say in common, it's really engaging them. They're seeing both the humor and that heart.
That's really nice to hear. I know you like that because it's all, all the pieces coming together, but they have the different parts that they love, but they love the book. So that's a
Yes.
plus. It's a bonus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it just probably depends on how the kid relates to the book. Are they relating to Jax? Maybe they're feeling lonely, or maybe they're going through a move, or are they relating to Scout because they just are an animal lover? They have a dog of their own and they can really visualize it in their own life. Or are they relating to Sasha and or other characters in the book, right? So some of them, it's like the scene when Jax goes to the pound, right? Is just, they're like, so yeah. Some it's the very end where everything is, you get the unfolding.
So Ellen, now it's time for our It's time for our fun lightning round. And this is where I just ask you a series of questions, and whatever comes to mind, you just answer it, and no grading, no judging. This is just supposed to be fun. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, first question. Favorite dog breed besides golden retrievers?
That is hard. So favorites for me are really hard. I was asked this even at a school. The kids had a huge Q&A for me, and favorites for some reason are very challenging. I really like St. Bernese mountain dogs, large breeds. I think I'm a large breed dog lover.
That's awesome. So go-to cookie flavor, snickerdoodle, chocolate chip, or something else?
Snickerdoodle.
If you could swap places with any animal for a day, which one would you pick?
I think I would be a bear.
Oh, interesting. I like that. A book or film from your own childhood that still inspires your imagination today?
The Wizard of Oz.
Wow, nice. So have you done the Pink Floyd and Wizard of Oz thing?
Not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ellen, I want to thank you so much for being here on Reading in the Middle. Your wonderful, wonderful, hilarious, beautiful book, A Dog and His Boy, The Switch, is out. And do you have a website where our listeners can reach out and maybe contact you, or read your website that they can visit?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. You can find me online at ellenphinney.com. My last name is spelled with a PH. So that's ellenphinney.com. My books are available there. Also, or I should say the book is available there. Also, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram's easy to find me. I'm at Ellen Phinney. So just my first and last name. And Facebook, it's Ellen Phinney Author.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's been such a pleasure having you and to talk about your book. I loved it. And listeners, go out and get A Dog and His Boy, The Switch. You will absolutely be riveted. You will laugh. And all the potty humor, I love that. That's right up my alley.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That wraps up our conversation with Ellen Phinney, author of A Dog and His Boy, The Switch. I hope you're feeling ready to step into Jax and Scout's swapped world, full of laughter, surprises, and heart. If this episode resonated with you, here's one more thing to do. Get the book. A Dog and His Boy, The Switch, is waiting to carry you into its unforgettable journey. Share it with your family, your students, your friends, anyone who'd love a story about seeing life through different eyes. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss future conversations with authors, uplifting picture book and middle grade readers. Thank you so much for listening to Reading in the Middle. Until next time, keep turning pages, keep opening hearts, and always keep reading in the middle.